Gopi Janava JIvana Gopi Janava JIvana Ashodanandana Janaranjana Kitavanacha We're reading from Body Dances. I think we're on chapter 42 or something. 41. Oh, it's not the same, sorry. But we had read the first 8 verses of chapter 12. So we're starting with verse 9, and we'll go all the way to 75. So this page, what page is it? It's chapter 12, page 213. We're starting on page 213, right? With number 9. Who would like to start for us? Let's first chant the invocation prayer, sorry. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I am Narayanam Namaskritya Ram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Ojayam Mudirayet Astapraeshabhadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. So, who would like to start first? Maybe we should start in this area and then we go through. So, yeah, 2 verses per person, right? That's usually how we do it. We're starting from 9. So the first person will do 9 and 10.
Lord Krishna, meanwhile, entered Mathura with all his friends. They saw a vast and splendid town that seemed to have no end. Its gates and doors were cut from crystal edged with shining gold. The brass and copper granaries held all that they could hold. The major roadways, freshly cleansed, festooned with blossoms and rice, and intersections trimmed in gold like those of paradise. The public parks and gardens were expansive and serene, while mansions featured pleasure groves where no one could be seen.
The common houses dressed with coral pearls and precious stones. At latticed work where singing doves and peacocks made their homes. Each house was graced with water pots on both sides of its door, adorned with yogurt, mango leaves, cool, sandal paste, and more. The woman folk of Mathura, who knew of Nanda's son, at once prepared to see him upon hearing he had come. They set aside their bathing meals or rest to see him first, not noticing that due to haste their dresses were reversed.
Some ladies wore one earring, having left behind its mate, while others made up one eye and ran off to not be late. When they saw Krishna strolling like an elephant with glee, they held him in their hearts and fell apart in ecstasy. Their faces flushed, the ladies climbed their roofs and showered flowers. They said, "Those lucky gopis get to see these boys for hours." They watched the priest receive the Lord with garlands, curd, and grains, and other worship items, Vedic etiquette and tales.
The Lord then saw a laundry man, and glancing at his dress, said, "Give us all fresh garments, and you surely will be blessed." The laundryman had Kamsa's clothes and sternly shook his head. He eyed the self-sufficient Lord and arrogantly said, "Impertinent and cultured boys you weave out in the trees, yet you request the king's possessions, royal clothes like these. You fools, go home to village life if you wish to survive. King Kamsa dislikes beggars and will rarely spare their lives."
Lord Krishna was dissatisfied with what the man has said, and with a simple finger flick, removed his humpty head. The man's assistant dropped their bags and secured all around, as Krishna and his friends picked fine new clothing from the ground. A weaver came to Krishna, and his brother saw their clothes and trimmed and decorated them with ornaments and bows. The boys soon looked like elephants adorned for a parade. So Krishna blessed the weaver to be strong and unafraid.
The two lords then proceeded to a garland maker's home. That humble man, Sudam, welcomed them and bowing low. He gave them seats and washed their feet and offered pleasant gifts. He said, "My home and family are blessed by guests like this. The sages, gods, and forefathers are surely pleased with me. You two lords of the universe will bring prosperity upon our realm. I'm overwhelmed with your unbiased view. You're fair to all, but still recall us souls who worship you."
"Please order me, my master. Is there something I can do? What blessing could be greater than a service done for you? Fresh flowers of the trade on which my family depends. Please take our finest garlands for yourselves and all your friends." Sudama proved to be a servant worthy of the task. He satisfied his lord before his lord could even ask. His garlands made Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram inspired to give Sudama any benediction he desired.
Sudama said, "Devotion to your feet is my request, with friendship to devoted souls and mercy for the rest." Lord Krishna gladly gave all this and other boons as well. Sudama bowed and said goodbye, his troubles all dispelled. As Krishna walked the road, he saw a woman hunched and bowed. Her tray of fragrant ointments made her stand out from the crowd. "Oh, lovely lady," Krishna said, "what is this ointment for? Place some of it on us and you'll be happy evermore."
The woman named Kubja looked up, smiled prettily, and said, "I made this for the king Kamsa. Why don't you take it instead?" Attracted by the Lord Krishna's sweetness, lovely smiles, and charm, Kubja spread ointment generously across his face and arms. Lord Krishna's monsoon bluish skin took on a yellow hue. The ointment then turned Balaram's white skin a pleasant blue.
The brothers were delighted, and to show his gratitude, Lord Krishna touched his sweet-faced hunchback girl generous mood. He placed his feet upon her toes, then fingers to her chin. Lord Krishna raised his hands and made her straight as a pin. By Krishna's touch, Kubjara became the most attractive girl, her limbs and breasts made lovely as her twisted back unfurled.
Kubja, now an appealing beauty, pinched Lord Krishna's cloth. She blinked and smiled and said to him, her voice abruptly soft, "O hero, come to my house. I can't bear to leave you here. O best of males, be kind and make my tensions disappear." Lord Krishna glanced at Balaram and all his cowherd friends. He laughed and said, "Your house indeed is good for homeless men. A tourist such as me can find protection there in you. Yes, surely I shall visit when my duties here are through."
Continuing along the road, accepting many gifts, Lord Krishna touched the ladies' hearts and set their minds adrift. Their bangles, braids, and clothing slackened, standing stunned and still. They seemed to turn to painted forms as Cupid worked his will. Preparing for the festival. The boys then heard the festival tomorrow would include the worship of a sacred bow of striking magnitude. They entered the arena where the bow was being viewed. A squad of guards surrounded it, but Krishna walked right through. To everyone's astonishment, Lord Krishna raised the bow. He pulled the heavy weapon string as far as it would go and snapped it as an elephant might break a sugar cane. A booming crack reached Kamsa's palace, rattling his brain. Enraged, the guards cried out, kill him, circling the boys. They closed on them forebodingly with swords and shields deployed. Then Krishna picked up half the bow and Balaram the other, and all of Kamsa's soldiers were routed by the brothers.
Lord Krishna and his friends strolled out the main arena gates and carried on their tour before the hour grew too late. The citizens thought gods had come and marveled at the sight. At last the boys returned to Nanda's camp to spend the night. The gopis had predicted Mathura would soon enjoy a host of benediction from Yashoda's charming boy. The residents indeed saw Krishna's opulence themselves, a treasure even sought by goddess Lakshmi, queen of wealth.
Lord Krishna and his entourage ate rice and milk and said good night to all their fathers, then they calmly went to bed. King Kamsa, meanwhile, knowing Krishna's actions, could not find a moment's rest for evil omens paralyzed his mind. He could not see his footprints, all the stars appeared in twos. He could not hear his breath, his shadow showed a hole right through. He looked at his reflection, but his head somehow was gone. Dreams of ghosts and poison Kamsa tossed and turned till dawn.
At last, King Kamsa rose to make arrangements for the day. He ordered the arena dressed in lively, festive ways. The crowd sat in galleries, chief guests in special seats, and Kamsa on the dais, though his heart kept skipping beats. The royal band played loudly with a stirring martial sound, as muscles wrestlers finely dressed marched in and looked around. Mashtika, Kanura, and others sat on wrestling mats, as Nanda and the lesser rulers paid their royal tax.
King Kamsa said, "Dear Nanda, you are my leading village chief. Did you not visit me because your sons have caused me grief? Don't worry, please be seated." Nanda bowed and glanced around and noticed his precocious sons were nowhere to be found. Lord Krishna heard the drumming from the festival and said, "The time has come for justice to descend on Kamsa's head. We showed our power harmlessly by fracturing his bow, and still the stubborn tyrant will not let our parents go." So we're gonna stop reading there because it's quite long. So yeah.
Shruti said until 75, but I think if we read too much, all your heads will spin around the whole day. So let's just stop there. So let's just look at a quick summary of what we just read. Yesterday we read how Akrura was so happy to bring them to Mathura, and Akrura wanted them, he hosted them and wanted them to stay longer, but Krishna said, no, just stay at your house. I'm going to leave now. And basically Krishna and Balaram and all their coward friends, you know, they're just simple village boys. So they were quite excited to be in this phenomenal city of Mathura, which it's described having, you know, bridges and roads of gold. And on the inside of people's houses, there were gems on the floor, studded gems, just like wealth and beauty beyond what we can imagine. So the coward boys were just walking around, enjoying themselves, enjoying the scenery. Then they came across a washerman who actually had Kamsa's clothes. And they thought, oh, this looks nice. We want these clothes. But the washerman was quite arrogant and tried to chase them away and chastise them. To which Krishna reacted with the flick of his finger being the washerman. And then immediately thereafter, there was a weaver who helped the coward boys to arrange the clothes very nicely. Actually, it's explained in the commentaries by the acharyas that this weaver decorated the cloth in such a way that it would be perfect for the wrestling that was to come. So it's kind of like WWE costume that he put on him. Then right after that, there was Sudama, who was a garland maker, and he had already heard that they were coming, these two amazing boys. So he'd already actually prepared some garlands hastily. So he had garlands ready for them. So then they were garlanded. So the washerman, his head was flicked off, but the weaver and the garland maker, they were given profuse blessings, and they felt that like their life was perfect. And then, am I missing anything? After that, they went to the bow, went in the sacrificial arena. Oh, sorry, Kubja, yes. There was the hunchback lady who was standing right on the sidewalk, I guess, as they were walking past, and they could smell all these amazing fragrances because she was, I guess she was someone who made a living by selling ointments or making ointments. So Krishna said, you know, maybe you can share some of that. And she put the oils on them, and then Krishna blessed her as well, and, you know, made her spine straight. And after that, they went to the sacrificial arena. Krishna picked up the bow and snapped it in half. Does anyone know what that's reminiscent of? Lord Ram, yeah, it's just like Lord Ram had done millennia before. So that's just a quick summary of the section that we read. Then they went home and, you know, settled down, and Kamsa was having some really bad nightmares. It's kind of like foreshadowing for Kamsa. So just a quick summary of that, just to refresh it in your memory. And now that you can think about it with that broad view, we'd like to ask.
Was there any part of the reading that bothered anyone, that made you feel some sort of confliction?
Robert.
The woman asking Krishna to come back to her house.
Okay.
The way it was worded made it sound. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Anything else? Yes, Chris.
The beheading seemed a little extreme.
A little excessive, right? Okay. Yes, definitely. So there's a few things as these boys are strolling through Mathura, they're just kind of creating havoc and seemingly acting in, from our material calculations, what might seem immoral ways, or, you know, it's difficult to understand. As we've been going through this 10th canto, this theme comes up a lot. That, you know, it seems like Krishna transgresses all kinds of Vedic customs and principles, but there's always a reason for that, no?
Definitely has a sense of entitlement.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
you got some nice clothes there that they belong to someone else.
Yeah. So yeah, Chris was kind of hitting on the exact topic that we want to dive into deeper today.
Yeah, so Chris said that it was a little unfair, a little extreme, that Krishna just like flicked his head off when he didn't want to give Kamsa's clothing. And later in the text, it actually,
In the Bhagavad.
so yes, in the Bhagavatam, but also I'm just going to read here. Sudama says, I'm overwhelmed with your unbiased view. You're fair to all, but still recall us souls who worship you. You're fair to all, but he flicked his head off for not giving him clothing. In the Bhagavatam, actually, the proper text is, because you are the well-wishing friends and supreme soul of the whole universe, you regard all with unbiased vision. Therefore, although you reciprocate your devotees' loving worship, you always remain equally disposed toward all living beings. Equally disposed.
I'll scroll through.
And the acharyas actually, and yeah, in their commentary, they actually emphasize what Sudama is saying. Though you are equal to all, you show special mercy to your devotees. Sorry, this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And this is actually confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna confirms this in 9:29 in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So Sudama is also saying that you are merciful, Krishna is merciful to whoever worships him, whether it's a Brahmana or a dog eater. So without regard for birth or caste, Krishna is merciful. So Sudama is saying that Krishna is impartial. Krishna is saying that he is impartial, but Krishna flicked the head of the laundry man for not giving him clothes. So how can we say that Krishna is impartial? Christina.
So I think the key thing to remember here is that being impartial doesn't mean Krishna treats everyone the same. Krishna reciprocates. So it's sort of like in Foursquare, there's this thing like nice serve, nice return. You know, you like hit the, if the other person hits the ball nicely to you, you hit the ball back nicely. If the other person hits the ball, you know, spikes the ball to you, then, you know, you're going to spike the ball back. So it's that's the impartiality here. And the washerman, he wasn't just like, no, sorry, these are someone else's clothes, you know, it's my, you know, this is my job, I apologize. He was like really kind of haughty and really kind of holding it over them that like, oh, your cowherd voice, and like, I'm so great because like I live in the city. Like he was kind of a nasty dude. So so that also combined with the fact that like just seeing Krishna, and if Krishna kills you, even if he beheads you, like that's a really good thing. Like that's one of the best things that can basically happen to anyone. So yeah, we have to remember that, like, first of all, the impartiality is about this like nice serve, nice return kind of principle, and that being killed by Krishna is a great benediction.
Yeah, Christina pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Also, we don't know if there's some previous story. Like I got from somewhere that Kubja was the woman who, Brahmana's sister or whatever, got her nose cut off by Lord Ram because she desired to have Krishna as her husband. So we don't know what the previous story might be. So that's one reason Krishna was reciprocating with Kubja.
So we hear all these, oh, love. Sorry.
I was listening to a Prabhupada lecture yesterday, and this made me think of what he was saying. So Krishna, like in the form of Vishnu, has 4 arms, and in 2 of his arms, he has like gifts for his devotees and like things that bring pleasure to his devotees. And then the other 2 hands have weapons for the demons. So it's like kind of half of his job is to like liberate certain individuals.
Right. So we hear all of these stories about Krishna killing people, Hiranyakashipu, the laundry man, and then we hear about all these stories about Krishna favoring his devotees. So it's hard to think of Krishna as impartial. But as Christina said, it's reciprocation, right? So Krishna is impartial. We do see Krishna as impartial because anyone can practice Krishna consciousness, right? Anyone can do this, but not everyone does. So if you're on the outside looking in, it does seem, oh, Krishna favors his devotees, but it's actually Krishna favors everyone and he wants everyone to come to him. You just have to take that step to come towards Krishna and you will feel his mercy. So the barrier to entry is not like, there's no bar to entry, you know, he doesn't stop people from coming in. I'm sorry.
Right, yes.
You done?
Like this concept of like Krishna is partial because he's acting differently with different people. Some people like do complain that why is like if you say like God is like impartial, why does he like act especially to his devotees? But then if he would act equally to everyone, like irrespective of how they're acting towards him, that just seems like a very impersonal idea. Like he's not a person, he's just in like it's just a thing who just gives out money, like whoever needs it, he just like dispenses like cash or something like that. Yeah, like irrespective of, and then you need to have bank balance anyways. But because Krishna is a person, so that's understanding that he's impartial in a different way. It's not just like everyone's equal. Everyone's equal, but then based on how they come to Krishna, Krishna reciprocates.
Exactly. So everyone's on an even playing ground. Krishna is inviting everyone in, but he's giving us the free will to make our own decision to come to him.
It's kind of like the difference between equality of outcome and equality of opportunity. For any of you who might have come in touch with that in economics or whatever. Okay, so if for whatever reason someone struggles to see Krishna's impartiality, that person might end up thinking of Krishna as cruel. And I'll share a little story. That person might think of Krishna as cruel and might think that life is unfair or even that life is meaningless. So I'll share a little story. I have a friend, a very dear friend, and we were speaking recently, and this topic came up, as it has come up over the last 2 years, here and there. This person feels like life is cruel and like Krishna is cruel. And he was saying, my friend was saying, why is there not a quit button? He's kind of referring to video games, He just wants to exit the game. He just wants to quit. But now he knows the Krishna conscious philosophy, if he were to, God forbid, commit suicide, he'll just have to take another form or become a ghost or whatever. There's no real quit button. But I was thinking his analogy is not really that solid. He's just saying, oh, I was just playing a game and now I want to quit. Well, let's expand on the analogy. It's more like he didn't have necessarily the money to buy the game. So he went out to rob someone, then shot someone else by accident in the process. Now he's running from the cops. And then he goes somehow, gets to his house and starts playing the game. And now he just wants to quit the game. But meanwhile, the police are looking for him. They break down the door. He owes something. He owes something. He played the game, but he also caused some damage. He hurt some other people in the process. So that would be a more complete analogy, right? In fact, there is a way to quit if you'd like. None of our acharyas would recommend this, but you can merge into the Brahman effulgence. You can lose your individuality, you can quit, so to speak. But that is a very difficult process. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita does not recommend it. It says it's a very perilous and long journey to get to that. Devotional service and personalism is much easier. And B, all the souls who quit this material world and just try and alleviate suffering by quitting and merging into the Brahman effulgence, they all eventually fall back down to the material world because as souls, it's not relishable merging into Krishna's body and his effulgence. So, that quit option, it does actually exist, but it's not recommended. But my friend is feeling like, why does it have to be so hard? He just wants to quit now. So kind of, he ran into a situation, as we all did, into this material world, causing havoc, causing misery for others. And now we're like, oh, okay, I've had enough. I want to stop, but we don't want to be accountable for our actions. So my friend might say Krishna is cruel, and some of us might not agree with his statement, right? Some of us might feel like, no, based on the philosophy that we imbibe and our vigyan, our realized knowledge, our realized experiences, we might actually think, no, Krishna is fair, he is actually impartial. So why, I have a question now, why is there this difference of opinion? Any ideas? Yes.
They think that they're the body.
Yes, yes, exactly. So I would phrase it in a different way. State of consciousness. Okay. My friend, I still think of him as a devotee, but he's not necessarily in the best state of consciousness at the moment. For probably 2 years or more, he's not really chanting. He's gone back to some of his previous habits, his pre-devotee habits. So he's not in the best state of consciousness. So ancient cultures make it very clear that certain realms of knowledge are only accessible if you're in the right state of consciousness. So you have to be in a certain state of consciousness to be able to understand Krishna's impartiality and to understand how everything in the universe is actually fair. And you can go a step further. Even if you're not at that state of consciousness to fully understand it, you can be at a state of consciousness where you at least understand that you might not presently be able to understand, like knowing that you don't know. Isn't that an interesting thought? That's what real intelligence and discernment means. Not only do you discern what is A from B, but you can also discern, you can also determine that I might not be able to access this knowledge right now. And then just, take a moment to wait, be patient. In this modern world, we want the answers instantly. But certain very important nuggets of truth, we have to accept that we might just not be in the right state of consciousness yet to be able to fully access them and understand them deeply. So, okay, how seriously do modern thinkers take this idea of states of consciousness? Well, not at all. If you try and read the academic literature on a topic like this, most of the academic thinkers will just speak of states of consciousness as some weird thing that religious groups hold dear and, gives them some meaningful ritualistic experience. Modern thinkers don't take states of consciousness seriously, and the idea that different states of consciousness can give you access to different kinds of knowledge, they don't take that seriously. When JIvana Maharaj was here giving a class, Lo asked a question about a friend of hers who, just doesn't think that all these things are real, all these spiritual things. And Maharaj made the point that, yes, modern thinkers, we only take seriously whatever we can control. The natural sciences, that's our modus operandi, that's our way of gaining knowledge. That's what we take seriously. Whatever we can control, because in the sciences, you have a controlled experiment. You have to be able to monitor all the variables that are in the experiment. You have to control it. But is it accurate to say that we control everything around us? What do you think?
Yes.
You really think so?
No.
I was just Devi and I were speaking a day or two ago, and we were speaking about lightning because it was one of the symbols on the lotus feet that was discussed with us. And he was saying, we estimate that if we could capture lightning, capture that energy, that electricity, then we could power New York for whatever it is, a month or like 2 weeks or whatever. But we don't know how to harness the power of lightning. There are so many things in this universe that we don't know anything about, that we can't explain. And even the natural scientists, they do admit this, but at the same time, they're so attached to this method of gaining knowledge where we have complete control. Ancient cultures diverge from this quite a bit, and they emphasize states of consciousness, right? In ancient cultures, you cannot divorce your lifestyle from the knowledge that you're trying to gain. That's why if you look at Greek philosophers, for example, they would utter this idea that knowledge is equal to virtue. What does virtue mean? Virtue means acting according to the highest moral standards, basically. So virtue was incredibly important to Greek philosophers. That's why they lived a certain lifestyle. They lived kind of like Brahmanas, like the Brahmanas we see in the Bhagavatam and the Vedic texts. They lived extremely simply because they knew that your lifestyle affects your state of consciousness, and your state of consciousness affects the amount of knowledge and the types of knowledge that you can obtain. And so you have many Greek philosophers that were vegetarian, for example, Pythagoras and even Plato in the Republic. So we don't have any writings that were directly jotted down by Socrates, but Plato writes about his teacher, Socrates. And Plato has a famous work, The Republic, where they're speaking about what the ideal society is, right? And Plato quotes Socrates in that text as saying that the ideal city would be vegetarian, and that's the moral virtue that should be aspired for. And they spoke about how the consumption of meat leads to more war, all these kind of ideas. And Pythagoras was vegetarian, and they say that he probably learned it from the Egyptians that he studied with, because Egyptian priests were also vegetarian in the ancient world. Then you have Greeks like someone called Zeno. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's basically the founder of Stoicism. Stoicism went on to influence all the Hellenistic and Roman thinkers. So the point is just that these ancient thinkers, they had no doubt about the fact that states of consciousness are extremely important, and states of consciousness determine what kind of knowledge you can access. Meanwhile, in the modern world, just think of your average ethics professor. You know, what does their lifestyle look like? Their lifestyle looks like just like everyone else's lifestyle looks like. They're not making any concerted effort to really make major lifestyle adjustments. Am I right, or am I lying to you? What do you think?
That's a pretty large generalization. I mean, okay, sure.
Sure.
Pretty large.
Like, okay, let's just take a topic like vegetarianism. There might be some that are vegetarian, but I think I could confidently make the assertion that probably 90% of every philosophy of ethics professor out there in the world is not vegetarian. So it's because we have this attachment to the natural sciences, because that's a type of knowledge you can access usually, no matter what state of consciousness you're in. You know, you can be some physics genius and you can go into a laboratory and you can do your experiments and get the results you want. All the while, that person might be a drunkard. They might be beating their wife. They might be doing whatever. They might be in extremely low states of consciousness, extreme tamagun, mode of ignorance. But they can still, you know, gain a certain type of knowledge. But if we want to understand Krishna, if we want to understand the meaning of life, know more about ourselves, the soul, or the eternality, the bliss of the soul, we have to realize that states of consciousness are very important. So if you want to think about Krishna as being partial or impartial, if you really want to know, if you really want to understand it, then keep chanting your japa nicely. Keep following the 4 regulative principles. And through that amazing lifestyle change that you make, that's how we can really access deeper categories of knowledge. So still a lot of time left, but we can just end here, and maybe there'll be some discussion. Govinda Prabhu. And then Prabhu.
Really funny, not funny story, but regarding states of consciousness. When I first came Krishna consciousness, I had one big question that I asked to maybe like 5 or 6 different teachers. And I would be going from one teacher to another teacher to another, and they'd all be giving me good answers, but it didn't sit well with me.
Is this like UF teachers or?
No, here, like you know, Prabhupada 301, different. And one day I kept asking Prabhupada Priya in different words the same question. And I remember one day she just chastised me. She basically was like, "Why you don't understand? I told you this many times. Like, what are you doing?" And then she said something really powerful that still to this day, 4 years later, resonated with me. He said, something is in your heart that's blocking, like a narta. And even though I may tell you, and this is the right answer, it does not resonate with you because you have something in there that's not allowing the knowledge to come in. Basically, your state of consciousness is dirty. and I kind of just took that in, and over some time of practice, now that question I had before totally does not bother me anymore, and it makes sense. So I was just thinking, many devotees struggle with certain things, certain questions they don't understand about Krishna, but eventually, if you give it time, it will make sense as Krishna cleans our heart.
Can you know what the question was?
Was, why do you need a guru?
Nice. Thank you, Govinda Prabhu. So Govinda, you basically illustrated something I mentioned earlier in the class, that as devotees, sometimes we don't have the state of consciousness to understand something, but we should at least have the right state of consciousness that allows us to understand that even if we don't understand, we might understand in the future, and then have the patience to, to make our way steadily towards that piece of knowledge. That's a very important skill to have. Prabhupada is next, and then I'll get to you, Dasi. I'm impartial.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, it's a very important point that you're making, and it's actually the first step in hermeneutics. In ISKCON hermeneutics, at least, is that when we're reading Prabhupada's books or something, and we come across a statement that we just strikes us like, what? Like, what did Prabhupada say? You read it like 5 times, and either you don't understand it or you react badly towards it. You're just like, I can't accept this. Like, this is just not true. That might happen. So then when that happens, then the first step of hermeneutics for trying to, understand what's going on there is to reflect, to look at oneself and ask. There's a whole list of questions to ask yourself. Like, for example, how is my sadhana? Am I chanting my 16 rounds attentively? And then how is my attitude? Am I humble? Am I willing to change? Am I willing to adjust my consciousness, my mentality? Am I willing to accept that I might be wrong? Like that. Do I have faith in Shastra? Do I have faith in the Acharya? Like that. So there are all these questions that before we can even go on, if we answer no to those questions, there's no point. We're not going to get it, no matter what we do after that. And then we just need to go back and really, chant nicely and, take shelter of senior devotees and try to remove those blockages, like Govinda was saying.
Thank you.
So Kalakanda Prabhu describes something known as 4 stages of learning, kind of like what you were saying, that acknowledge that you don't know something. So he describes the first stage as unconscious incompetence, like you don't know about something and you're not even aware that you don't know. So you're not even aware that you're ignorant. But then the first step of spirituality comes at the stage of conscious incompetence, like you don't know about something, but then you're aware of it, like this is what I want to know. So that's the first step. And that's, I think, the stage that you're trying to inspire us to at least come, acknowledge that, okay, there's something that I don't know. And then later, there's 2 more stages, then you come to conscious competence, where if you're aware of what's to be done and you can actually do it. So that's sadhana bhakti, steady practice, you know what to do and you're consciously doing it. And pure devotees then go to the stage of unconscious competence, they're not even trying hard, they don't have to try hard, and just by the nature, they're just aware of the knowledge, but they're just doing the practice. That's the highest stage, but at least we can kind of come to the stage of conscious competence.
Thank you, Prabhu. Advaita Prabhu, you also answer? And then
Hare Krishna. Thank you both very much. if I may go back to your first question that Christina answered. And if we were in a court, I would be like, objection, Your Honor. And if I may dare, it seems like still that it's kind of like a setup for the washerman. Because the way the two rambunctious brothers come in, it's very flamboyant, to say at least. So in a way, he's reciprocating with their rasa, right? But for that, the heads roll. It's still kind of, yeah, seemingly unfair, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't go like, yeah, like entitlement, like like it was mentioned. Yeah, they're very riding on a high horse.
Yeah.
Walking.
Well, they're two teenage boys, right, on top of the world. Well, to confuse everyone even more. Well, not confused, but nice little detail.
Sorry to be a devil's advocate.
No, but I'll even drop something on top of that. In the commentaries by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, these amazing acharyas point out that, you know, Sanskrit is an amazing language. There can be so many meanings just in one sentence. So you can read, so the washerman in the Bhagavatam verse is basically chastising them, saying, you know, you're from the forest. What are you doing here? Why are you trying to wear the king's clothes? Rascals, blah, 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 blah. But you can interpret what the washerman says in a different way. If, you know, the Sanskrit words are very flexible. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out, it could also mean, oh, you whose activities are most excellent and who travel on Govardhan Hill, would you put on such mundane clothes as these? Certainly not. Therefore, why do you want, even as a pastime, the impure things of the king? And so, yeah, it's just like it's a form of mercy, you know. So yeah, very interesting. Sorry, Christina. Oh, I just want to say one thing quickly. I think sometimes Krishna just does things that are so out of the ordinary, just to remind us that he's God and he can do whatever he wants. Christina.
Yeah, it kind of depends on whether you see getting your head flicked off by God as a bad thing or a good thing. It's all in your perspective. But anyway, I wanted to go back to the video game analogy since you brought it up. So yeah, I definitely take your point about your friend, and yeah, thank you for class, and thank you for explaining all these things very nicely. The way that I would look at it, just to offer a different perspective, is that like, so we're playing a game, but we can only kind of quit the game when we're finished with it. So, and finishing with it means like going through everything that kind of the whole experience that has been designed for you, and learning everything there is to learn, and then feeling like the sense of completion that, oh, I don't need to revisit this game. I don't need to go back and play it again. And this like merging into Brahman, or the kind of the quitting that you talked about, can be compared to maybe like, so in video games, right, there's a lot of situations where you can kind of finish the game without necessarily playing through all of what is in the game, but then there's like 100% completing the game where you like do everything that there is in the game. So the merging into Brahman can be like, you kind of finish the game, but there's still some stuff left that you didn't explore. And so what we hear is that when you merge it, if you merge into Brahman, then like you fall down again, because there's other stuff that, there's other stuff that you want to do in the material world. So that can kind of be compared to like, oh, I finished it, but like, there's still more that, I didn't explore. So I kind of want to go back and keep on playing. So I think this is a good way to look at it, because it's like Lord Krishna doesn't want to punish us, right? Lord Krishna wants to support us and wants us to be happy. So he's like, okay, you want to play this game, like play it to your heart's content. And that's kind of like to me, that's more of the dynamics than like you stole the game and someone's coming to, policemen are coming to arrest you kind of thing. So I just wanted to offer that as like kind of, that's how I see it.
Of course, something we can add to this, the laws of karma will act on you, but when you take to the path of bhakti, your heart gets melted and transformed. And then, the karmic reaction is not what it would have been. So that's also important to consider. I don't know if we have time. I don't know what the prasadam situation is. I don't know if anyone's checking. Maybe one more thing from us this afternoon. Got your hand up?
I just really liked what Govinda said about not being in the right consciousness to like understand the answer, because like I always have like this confusion with the topic of the jiva fall down, because I'm always like trying so hard to like get all the best things, and like sometimes even being like unworthy myself for those best things. So it's kind of, I'm just like contemplating like, how could I ever leave something like so good? Like, why could I leave someone who's so attractive, like most powerful, the richest? So I guess sometimes the answer is just that I'm stupid. It's interesting to see that from that perspective.
Oh, okay. I have a question for all of you, but might create quite a conversation. Someone might say, that sounds a little dogmatic. You want an answer to a question, and then some spiritual authority tells you, oh, you're just not in the right state of consciousness to understand it yet. Wow, that sounds a little fanatic and dogmatic. What do you think about that?
That's the end of her.
That in 7th or 8th grade, I was very much interested in learning chemistry. I was just reading the books of like 11th grade, 12th grade, and of course, like a lot of stuff about quantum chemistry didn't make sense to me. And then I would ask my teacher, like, oh, this doesn't make sense, because based on whatever perception I had, this is what the world is like, what knowledge I had didn't fit into that box. So then my teacher kindly told me, like, you're not at that stage, you don't have certain tools in order to understand this description of the world. So I guess I was like humble enough to listen to him, and then when I came to like those grades and I learned all those mathematical tools, then I could understand how that made perfect sense. And that's true for every stage of our academic career also, like things that I'm learning now, many years ago, that didn't make any sense. So I just had to again be aware that there's more things, and I could be there, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah. So I think the reason why religious groups and religious and spiritual knowledge get more flack for saying something like this, whereas the same phenomenon is there in all other schools of knowledge. The reason why religion gets more flack is because there are less qualified individuals, and there have been many imposters, especially in Kali Yuga. It's a lot of duplicitous posers. So that's why humankind is just kind of like raw and sensitive when it comes to this topic. But the real ones still exist. If you look at Srila Prabhupada's life, it's just undeniable that he was driven by the highest forms of love of God. He sacrificed his whole life, gave everything to translate the Bhagavatam, to train his disciples, and so on and so on and so on. It's just obvious that there's no duplicitousness. There's no pretending in Prabhupada's life. Sorry.
So one way to deal with these questions is just to help people understand that Krishna consciousness is very, very practical. It's not a theory. It's like you can't, to see the effects of the medicine, you have to take it. So say to somebody who has no experience in chanting the holy names, you tell them, we chant 728 times the holy name, like, well, you're nuts. doesn't make any sense, because Raj Maharaj was giving class the other day, and he said, when I was a young hippie, I was a musician, and I knew all of those kind of songs, all of them, top charts. He said, I've been chanting this mantra for nearly 51 years. None of those songs, could stick with you for more than maybe a few months.
Yeah.
But 51 years, it's very, so you can see that there is something in it.
Yeah. Thank you, bro. And I think to add on to that, we could just come back to this idea that lifestyle should be a consideration and the effects that a lifestyle have on us. As I've mentioned many times in the class, we have this tendency in the modern world to just be focused on this abstract theoretical knowledge that just floats like a bubble somewhere in the air, and it's completely disconnected from how this world and our lifestyles are actually affecting us, making us feel. Of course, we know about it. Everyone knows that mental health is on the decline. This is on the decline. That is on the decline. But still, even though we have these problems, we are struggling to accept that you have to start changing your lifestyle in a very practical way, and then you can get answers. It's happening. Meditation is becoming more popular, but the world's a little slow. It can go a little faster towards this kind of knowledge.
Yeah, I would tell if someone says, isn't that unfair or dogmatic that you require a higher state of consciousness or a certain attitude in order to understand transcendental knowledge? Not at all. It's just natural, because you're dealing with a person. In spiritual life, the idea of spiritual knowledge is that you're trying to understand God. You're trying to, know something about Krishna, basically. So it's like, let's say a person is very aggressive and antagonistic and just, horrible. And yet they're demanding to know things. They want information from you, like, what's your name? Where do you live? And, what was your childhood like? And they're just like, but their mood is just like really nasty. Like, you don't even want to talk to them at all. So, like, why would you give them that knowledge? Why would you give them that information about yourself? Or, and especially like someone wants to know like how you became, let's say someone wants to know how you became a devotee, right? How you came to Krishna consciousness, but they're like, who brainwashed you to, sell yourself into this ridiculous cult kind of thing. If their attitude is like that, then obviously you're not going to tell them your story, right? But then there's another person that comes along, they're very sweet, they're very sincere. Let's say they're helping you out, you're out in the garden and they're like, oh, can I help you? And they're pulling weeds in the garden with you. And then they're like, so, this lifestyle that you've chosen for yourself it's very interesting. Like, what inspired you to become a devotee of Krishna? Then it's like, you're going to be more inclined, right, to tell your story. So that's what it is. It's just like Krishna, he's willing to reveal more intimate aspects of himself and the knowledge by which we can approach him according to our attitude and our state of consciousness in approaching that knowledge.
Sorry, thank you so much. I think we should maybe end there. I don't know. Even though the prasada might not be ready, but still we should end at some point. So yeah, we wanted to do this spicy little topic. Thank you everyone for listening attentively and participating. It's very nice to give a class when you have an amazing audience. So in there, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.